Later that night, the janitor sat with his daughter, helping her with math homework. The janitor arrived and within minutes had shut down the main valve no one knew about. Did you see him just walk past? Like he didn't care? One said. The next day, a leak flooded the lobby, and no one could stop it. Now a spilled coffee cup seemed like the biggest war some people knew. He didn't answer right away. He just smiled and said, because they haven't looked up yet. The next day, a leak flooded the lobby, and no one could stop it. The janitor, once invisible, had become something else. A mystery. The elevator stopped. The janitor got off, and for the first time, the CEO didn't know what to say. The janitor walked past it, calm and silent, his eyes focused on the floor ahead. Why did this man, who cleaned floors, know the building better than his own engineers? The other nodded. I think he used to be in the army or something. He's not just a janitor. One of the executives made a joke loud enough for the room to hear. Hey chief, maybe next time promote a janitor instead of hiring from Harvard. Laughter followed, but the CEO didn't laugh. He looked back at the janitor who never even turned around. That small act caught the attention of someone watching from the side. It was the new HR manager, young and observant, who noticed the tension. She had seen the CEO yell before, but today she saw something different in the janitor's face. There was no fear, only strength. The quiet kind that made you look twice. Meanwhile, the janitor mopped the marble floor with care, but his mind was elsewhere. He remembered nights in the desert, fire in the sky, and commands shouted in the dark. He remembered carrying wounded men on his back, running through smoke and bullets. That morning, the CEO had a press conference scheduled, but he was already in a bad mood. As he walked through the hallway, he saw the janitor and rolled his eyes. This time, he dropped his briefcase on purpose, expecting the janitor to pick it up at lunchtime. The CEO entered the cafeteria. The janitor was fixing a broken table leg. Later, in the break room, two interns whispered about what they had seen. Later that night, the janitor sat with his daughter again. She asked the same question. Why don't they respect you, Daddy? He looked at her, eyes calm. Because they only see the broom, not the hand holding it. Meanwhile, the HR manager started digging. She looked up the janitor's records, but there was nothing beyond his employment form. No school history, no resume, just his name and ID. Strange? Very strange. She walked to the janitor closet the next day and knocked. Can I ask you something? She said. He looked up from organizing cleaning supplies. Go ahead, she hesitated. Who were you before this? He smiled. Someone else. Then he closed the door gently. By evening, the video she had shared had reached upper management. They were confused, curious, and slightly embarrassed. But no one dared ask him anything directly. The CEO kept watching him from a distance, not because he cared, but because he was trying to understand what was happening. In the parking lot, a stranger in a black suit waited by the janitor's car. When he arrived, the man nodded. Sir, we've been trying to reach you. The janitor's smile faded. I told you, I'm done. The man handed over an envelope and walked away. Inside was a photograph and one word, missing. That night, the janitor stood outside his apartment balcony, looking at the stars. He folded the picture slowly and closed his eyes. The next morning, he walked into the CEO's office without knocking. The CEO looked up, surprised. Yes. The janitor calmly placed a folded paper on his desk. You'll need this today. The CEO opened it. It was a security protocol plan, detailing emergency exits and access codes. Even he didn't know. How did you get this? He asked. Because I helped design the building, the janitor said, and then walked out. The CEO froze. That was impossible, but the plan was real, authenticated, signed by an architect with the same last name as the janitor. He started connecting dots, but nothing made sense. Later that afternoon, during a fire drill, the plan the janitor gave saved everyone time and confusion. It rerouted people out faster than the building's official procedure. The janitor stood by the main gate, directing people without saying a word. People obeyed him instinctively, like he was in command, and the CEO, he just watched, still not understanding, but feeling something new, a sense of unease. The janitor wasn't who he appeared to be, not at all. But the bigger question was, why was he here, and what was coming next? Rain tapped softly against the windows as the office lights dimmed one by one. Most employees had gone home, but the janitor remained, walking slowly through each floor, checking corners others forgot. He moved like a man with purpose, even when all he carried was a mop. But tonight, something was different. As he passed the executive floor, he saw the CEO still in his office, standing near the glass, deep in thought. The janitor didn't stop. He kept walking, until the CEO turned and called out, "Wait." For a moment, silence filled the hallway. The janitor turned, eyebrows slightly raised. The CEO stepped closer. How did you know that exit plan would work? He asked. The janitor's eyes stayed calm. Because I wrote it. Years ago, when this building was just a blueprint. You, the CEO said, almost laughing. You designed this place. The janitor didn't smile. Parts of it. The CEO's voice lowered. Who are you? Really? The janitor didn't answer. He simply said, you should ask why I'm Here now, not who I was before. And then he walked away again. That night, the CEO didn't sleep. He searched the name of the janitor, trying to trace records, but there was almost nothing. A few military mentions, a photo in a news article blurred beyond clarity, a note about a government project that was classified. It was as if the man had erased himself from history. The next morning, an emergency meeting was called. The board had received word that a tech company was planning a hostile takeover. Tensions were high. The CEO entered the boardroom furious, throwing papers on the table. How could no one see this coming? He shouted. The room was silent until the door opened. The janitor walked in, holding a folder. The CEO snapped, "What are you doing here?" The janitor spoke calmly. "I heard you needed insight on the hacking attempt." "This is private," a board member began, but the janitor cut him off. "I built the original firewall for this company's digital vault 10 years ago, under a different name, and right now, someone is bypassing it, using protocols I created." They laughed, thinking it was a joke, but he opened the folder. Inside were diagrams of network security layers, ones the company didn't even know still existed. The CTO leaned forward, squinting. "Where did you get this?" "From my own backups," the janitor replied. "And you have less than 4 hours before your entire system is breached?" The laughter stopped. Eyes turned to the CEO. He was pale now, lips tight. "Prove it," he said. The janitor pulled out a tablet. Within seconds, lines of code scrolled across the screen. Then, alarms began going off on the boardroom monitors. Red signals. "Intrusion detected." "He's right," the CTO said, standing. "This is happening now." Panic spread. Everyone started talking at once. The CEO was speechless. The janitor, meanwhile, stood in the corner, quietly watching. "If you want me to stop it," he said, "I'll need full access." "You're a janitor," one board member protested. "You're not even an employee in IT." The janitor turned slowly. "Right now, titles won't save you. Skill? Will?" The CEO nodded. "Give him what he needs." An hour later, in the server room, the janitor moved like he belonged there, fingers dancing across keyboards, bypassing systems, rerouting firewalls. The young IT staff stood beside him. "Stunned, sir," one whispered. "Where did you learn this?" He didn't look up. "Far from here, in places where mistakes cost lives, not just money." Within 3 hours, the breach was stopped. A digital trap had been set. The intruder's IP was traced to a rival firm. Evidence was collected. Ready for legal action, the CEO stood in the doorway, watching it all unfold. He didn't say thank you, not yet. He just nodded slowly. Later that night, the janitor walked into the locker room, washed his hands, and stared at himself in the mirror. He looked tired, not from work, but from hiding, from pretending. He opened his locker and pulled out a worn-out photo, a team, a uniform, a medal, a friend with a smile now gone. That friend's last message was written on the back. "If anything happens to me, keep your promise." He folded it again. He remembered that promise. That's why he had taken this job. That's why he was here. But something had changed. People were watching him now, whispering, even respecting him. The next morning, something unexpected happened. As he entered the building, several employees smiled at him. One even offered him coffee. The intern, who had laughed before, said softly, "Thanks for saving our data." He just nodded. He didn't need thanks, but it was new. The CEO called a company-wide meeting later that week. "We're facing challenges, external and internal. But we've also seen something important," he said, "that every person here matters no matter their title." Everyone knew he was talking about the janitor. He even paused and looked toward the back where the janitor stood. "Some of us," he said, "have been more than we imagined." The audience clapped. Some stood, but the janitor didn't move. He just lowered his eyes. Because this wasn't why he had come. He still hadn't fulfilled his promise. That night, another envelope arrived at his door. No return address. Inside, a photo of a woman, a name, and the words, "She's in trouble. Time to act." The janitor clenched his jaw. He knew what it meant. The past wasn't finished with him yet, and someone had found out he was still alive. The next morning, he didn't go to work. The janitor, whose real name no one seemed to know, packed a small bag, locked his apartment, and vanished into the city's morning fog. In the office, people noticed. By 10 a.m., whispers had started. "Where is he? Is he okay?" The CEO paced his office. He didn't like the silence. He had grown used to watching the janitor from afar, a strange mixture of suspicion and respect blooming inside him. The man had saved the company's system, and possibly his own career, and now he was gone. Meanwhile, the janitor walked through an old neighborhood. The buildings were smaller here, faded, forgotten. He stopped in front of a closed bookstore. He knocked once, then twice. A slot opened in the wooden door. "He's not supposed to be here," a voice said. "He is," the janitor replied. They sent the photo. The door clicked open. Inside, 3 old men sat at a table, drinking tea. One wore a military ring, another had burn scars on his hands. The third blind in one eye smiled softly. "Took you long enough," he said. "She's not safe." The janitor sat down. "Tell me everything." They handed him a file. Inside were photos of a woman early 40s, smart eyes, lab coat. She worked for a defense contractor, hidden under a false name, but someone had exposed her. She has something they want, the blind man said, and she only trusts one person. The janitor stared at the photo. His eyes didn't blink. Where is she now? Being followed. The scarred man said. You have 72 hours before they move her out of the country. The janitor stood. That won't happen. He took the file, left through a back alley, and made a call from a public phone. One ring. Then a voice answered. You're alive, it said. I need transport. The janitor replied. And surveillance on a black SUV with tinted windows. Near the biotech labs understood? The line went dead. Back at the company, the CEO finally admitted it out loud. We don't know who he is. The head of security said. No employment records before 3 years ago. Everything else is either sealed or doesn't exist. The CEO sat down slowly. Find him? Quietly. But someone had already found him. That night, the janitor stood on a rooftop, binoculars in hand. Across the street, the woman in the photo was walking to her car. 2 men followed one behind, one across the street. The janitor didn't wait. He moved down the fire escape like water, blending into shadows. Unseen, he reached her just as she unlocked her car. Dr. Alina, he said. She turned, startled. Her eyes widened. You're not dead. No, he said. But you will be if you get in that car. Just then, tires screeched. The black SUV appeared, speeding toward them. He pulled her away just in time. Bullets hit the driver's side window. Glass shattered. He covered her, rolled behind another car, and pulled out a small metal device from his jacket. It looked like a pen. With one press, it emitted a sharp electric pulse. The SUV's engine died mid-road. The attackers jumped out, confused, and began to run. But 2 motorcycles blocked the street. Riders in black helmets. Backup. They didn't speak. They only moved. Within minutes, the men were on the ground, unconscious. Alina was shaking. What is going on? They want what's in your head, the janitor said. I'm here to make sure they never get it. They drove away in silence. She looked at him through the rearview mirror. Why now? Because I made a promise, he said, to your brother, before he died. Her eyes softened. I always said you were the best. No, he said quietly. Just the last one left. They hid in a safe house outside the city. It was small, quiet, and far from cameras. He made tea. She sat at the edge of a worn-out couch. It's a formula, she said. A way to make a way, I think, in emotions. It's dangerous if used wrong. That's why they want it, he said. She nodded. It's not just code. It can change wars. For hours, they talked. Old memories came up, regrets, laughter, loss. He hadn't smiled in years, but tonight, he almost did. But just before dawn, the silence broke. A drone hovered outside, red light blinking. He grabbed her hand, run. They escaped through a trapdoor under the kitchen, crawled through mud, reached a tunnel. The house exploded behind them. The shockwave shook the tunnel walls, but they kept moving. When they finally emerged near a train station, Alina turned to him. We can't run forever. No, he said. We hit back now. They boarded a freight train. No tickets, no seats, just steel and cold wind. She looked at him. Why did you become a janitor? To disappear, he said. People don't look at janitors, they just walk past them. She smiled sadly. Until they save the world. They reached another city by night. He made contact with an old friend, a hacker who owed him a favor. Together they set a trap, leaked false information, let the enemy believe they would upload the formula at a hidden server. The bait worked. Armed agents arrived, but the formula was a decoy. Instead, it uploaded a virus to their entire network. Phones bricked, hard drives wiped. The enemy stumbled in chaos, but it wasn't over. Not yet. A man watched everything from a distance. Tall, sharp suit, cold eyes. He turned to his assistant. Get me the CEO now. The assistant blinked. The same CEO who fired him. Yes. The man replied. He knows more than we thought. And your friend the janitor, he's not cleaning floors anymore. The call came just as the CEO was finishing a meeting. His assistant rushed in. Pale sir, there's someone on the line. He says you'll want to hear this. The CEO took the phone, annoyed. Yes, who is this? The voice on the other end was cold, professional. Your janitor is not who you think he is. And now, he's interfering with a national operation. The CEO frowned. What are you talking about? He destroyed a facility last night and took something very valuable. We believe your company is connected. We need access to your internal servers now. The CEO hesitated. Wait, who are you? The voice was gone, just static, and then silence. The CEO looked at his assistant. Find him now. Meanwhile, miles away, the janitor stood by a payphone watching a newspaper stand. Alina sat beside him wearing a hoodie. She looked exhausted. They'll come after us again. They already have, he said, nodding at the newspaper. The headline read, Biotech Labs hit by cybernetic suspected insider involved. Below it, blurry CCTV images of Alina and the janitor leaving the lab. They've made us the enemy, she whispered. That's the plan, he replied. Now we make our next move. They traveled by foot, avoiding all major roads. Alina asked, where are we going? To find the man who ordered your death, he said, and to give him a choice: tell the truth or disappear. At sunset, they reached an old train yard. A man in overalls waved them in. Long time, my friend, he said to the janitor. You're late. We're being followed, the janitor said. We need clean IDs, fast transport, and access to the national network for 20 minutes. Dangerous, the man replied. Everything's being watched now. That's why it has to look like an accident. The next night, news broke of a factory fire near the city's edge. Inside the smoke, the janitor and Alina moved, hidden, unseen, was working. Inside the building, they reached a secured room. Computers, servers, cameras. This was the core of a forgotten intelligence satellite hub shut down years ago, but still operational. Alina uploaded part of the formula, not the full version, just enough to attract attention. Are you sure about this? She asked. They'll trace it. Exactly, he said. We want them to come here. We want them angry. We want them careless. The trap was set, but something went wrong. A sound outside, gunfire. Early, the janitor said, grabbing her hand. They ran, ducked into another hallway, climbed metal ladders up into a vent. Shadows moved below them, boots, weapons, voices. He's here. Someone shouted. Split up. In the vent, Alina whispered. Why are they so afraid of this formula? Because it gives machines a soul, he replied. And that, it makes them harder to control. Suddenly, the vent gave way. They fell, crashing into a pile of crates. Pain shot through the janitor's arm. Alina gasped, but he pulled her up. No time. Footsteps were coming. He led her through a broken wall into an old elevator shaft. Jump, he said. What? Onto the cables? She didn't question. They jumped, caught the thick wires, and slid down. It was reckless, stupid, and it worked. They landed hard in a pile of dust. We're not going to make it, she said. Yes, we are, he replied, and pointed. A tunnel lit faintly. He had prepared this in advance. Always expecting the worst, always planning 5 steps ahead. They escaped again. Behind them, the facility exploded. Another piece of their past gone. Later, they sat by a river, hiding, under a bridge. He wrapped his bleeding arm with part of his shirt. Alina looked at him. Why did you save me? After all these years. He didn't answer at first. Then softly he said, You remind me of who I used to be. Before I became a ghost. You were never a ghost, she whispered. You were just waiting to return. In a dark room across the country, the man in the sharp suit stared at a map. Red dots blinked. Trails of movement. Failed missions. He's better than we thought, he admitted. His assistant looked nervous. Should we call in Unit 7? No, I'll deal with him myself. The CEO received another anonymous message. This time, it was a video. Security footage from 5 years ago. It showed the janitor entering the company for the first time, but the footage glitched. Paused, zoomed. A small device was seen in his hand, one that could bypass biometric scanners. Who hired him? The CEO asked. No one had an answer. Panic set in. Was he ever a real employee, or was the company being watched all along? The janitor had become a ghost again, but this time, people were starting to notice. The city talked. Social media erupted with theories. Who was he? Was he a spy? A hero? A criminal? One post stood out. He was the janitor. No one saw him until he saved someone. The post went viral. It reached Elena's inbox. She showed it to him. He looked at it quietly, then said, They're watching now, which means we have their attention. So what do we do? She asked. He opened a small metal case. Inside, a flash drive. Now we give them the real formula, but not to them, to the world. She gasped. You want to leak it, not the dangerous parts? Just enough so everyone has it. That way no one can control it. She nodded slowly, like giving fire to everyone so no one burns alone. Exactly. But just then, a sniper round hit the pillar behind them. He pushed her down. Run. They sprinted across the bridge into the dark. Lights flared behind them. Cars, drones, voices stopped them. They ducked into a tunnel, ran through a maze of old train tracks, but at the end of the tunnel they stopped. A man stood there, tall, sharp suit, gun in hand. The same voice from the phone call. You've made quite the mess, he said. The janitor stepped forward. Let her go. You want me? Wrong, the man replied. I want both of you. You see, I was the one who burned her lab. I was the one who killed her brother. And I'm the one who made you disappear all those years ago. Elena's face went pale. The janitor's hands clenched. You shouldn't have said that, he growled. The man laughed. What will you do? You have no backup, no weapons, just regret. But just then, something beeped. The flash drive in the janitor's pocket blinked green. What is that? The man asked. A signal, the janitor replied, and a gift. Across the world, servers lit up. Screens flashed. Elena's formula began uploading to every university, every open research lab, every data hub that could store it. People everywhere would see it, understand it, improve it. No one could hide it now. The man screamed, You fool. You'll start a war. No, the janitor said. I just ended one. The man raised his gun, but a shot rang out from behind him. He dropped, stunned. Elena held the smoking pistol. That was for my brother. They left the tunnel quietly, the city behind them in chaos. Sirens, news reports, headlines flashing, anonymous code upload changes everything, formula leak, the future is here, the janitor who changed the world. But they didn't stop, they kept walking. Into the night, no names, no applause, just freedom. And as they disappeared into the shadows, the world finally asked the question, who was he really? And no one had the answer, except her. The CEO sat in his office, staring at the sealed file the janitor had left him. The seal wasn't ordinary, it was marked with a symbol he had seen once, long ago, during a private government briefing. Why would a janitor have access to such documents? His hands trembled slightly as he opened the folder. Inside were blueprints, but not just of the company building. There were sections marked as unofficial access, emergency tunnels, and a name he hadn't seen in years. Eden, Protocol, that name haunted him. It was a cancelled military project at least. That's what he was told. The janitor had signed the documents as Itkal, Elias Kane, the same name mentioned in the military rumors. The janitor was not just part of the program, he had designed it. That night, the CEO couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the past few weeks in his mind. The janitor's silence, the way people started listening to him, the visit from the man in the black suit, and now this. Filed. Everything pointed to a man who had lived many lives, none of which fit into the uniform of a janitor. The next day, without telling anyone, the CEO followed him, through corridors, staircases, and down into the sublevels of the building where no employees ever went. The janitor didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't didn't care. He stopped at a locked steel door and opened it using a keypad. The CEO took out his phone and started recording. Inside, the janitor entered a dimly lit room with old computer servers and what looked like a war map. Screens displayed images from outside buildings across the city. Surveillance data, real-time. Why was this beneath his own company? The janitor placed a photo on the table. It was of a young boy, maybe 10 years old, smiling. Then he placed another, this time of the same boy, but older, and listed as missing. The janitor whispered, "I'm close now." Then he turned sharply. "Why are you following me?" The CEO froze. "Who are you?" The janitor walked up, his eyes cold and focused. "I should ask you the same. This building isn't yours." "Not really." The CEO shook his head. "I don't understand." The janitor stared at him, then slowly reached into his jacket and handed him a file. "You will." Inside was a list of names. All people who had vanished years apart, employees, family members of whistleblowers, and one that made the CEO's knees go weak. His brother, the janitor, didn't blink. They were taken for a reason. "You just didn't ask the right questions." The CEO whispered, "Why are you showing me this?" The janitor said nothing, just pointed to the screen. There was a time-stamped video playing, one that showed the CEO walking into a restricted area 5 years ago. Except it wasn't him. It was someone who looked just like him, but not quite. "That's not me," he whispered. The janitor nodded. "No, but they made it look like it was you were a pawn. Now they want to make you disappear too, just like the others." The CEO sat down. He felt dizzy. "What do they want?" The janitor's voice hardened. "Control, silence, and no witnesses." The CEO looked up. "Then why are you here?" The janitor turned to the photo of the boy. "Because one of them made it personal." The CEO asked softly. "The boy?" "My son," he replied. "They took him 6 years ago. Said it was a mistake. I searched every file, every name, every face, and then I found this place. This company, a shell hiding the real facility underneath." The CEO covered his face with his hands. "My God." The janitor looked out through the steel door. "You want redemption? Help me expose them." "How?" the CEO asked. "By pretending you still don't know anything. By staying close to them while I find proof." Just then, a soft beep sounded. Someone was coming. The janitor pushed a hidden button, and the entire server room vanished behind a fake wall. "Go," he said to the CEO. "Now, you were never here." The CEO walked away, heart pounding. For the first time, he realized how small he was, in a game much larger than he ever knew. That night, he looked at the list of names again. His brother's name was not the last one. At the very bottom, recently added, was his own. He was next. The janitor, meanwhile, climbed to the rooftop where antennas buzzed faintly. He made a call. "Eagle is active. Target has seen the file." A voice replied, "You trust him?" The janitor replied, "No, but I trust what fear will make him do." Then he looked across the city skyline, where a blinking light on another rooftop confirmed that someone was watching him too. The CEO didn't go home that night. He sat in his car staring at the list with his name at the bottom. He felt like everything he believed was falling apart. His success, his power, his titles, all meant nothing now. He wasn't safe. He wasn't in control. He was a target. And the man he once mocked, the janitor, was the only one who knew the truth. At dawn, he walked into the building as usual, suit pressed, coffee in hand, nodding to the receptionist like everything was normal. But inside, every step felt heavy. Every face looked suspicious. He checked his email. A new message had arrived from someone with no name. just an attachment. A blurry image of him standing with the janitor near the restricted area. A warning? They were watching. He deleted the message instantly and rushed to the restroom, locked himself in a stall. His heart was racing. The walls felt like they were closing in. Then his phone buzzed. One text from an unknown number. No. Smile for the cameras. That day, the janitor didn't show up. The CEO kept checking the security feed but found nothing. No sign of him, no trace. He went to the sub-level himself. The steel door was gone, walled over like it never existed. Panic hit him. Was it all real? Was he imagining things? Then, in his office, he found something strange. On his desk was a cleaning cloth folded perfectly with a message underneath. Trust no one, not even your assistant. His eyes widened. He pressed the intercom. Send David in. David, his assistant, walked in with a calm smile. Yes, sir? How long have you worked here? The CEO asked. David blinked, surprised. For years, sir. Since your promotion. Did you see anyone near my office this morning? No, sir. But the CEO noticed something. David's eyes shifted when he said it. Just a little, but enough. Thank you, he said. That's all. When David left, the CEO opened the janitor's file again and noticed something he missed before. A photo. David, standing in the background of a military briefing, not in a suit, in a uniform. His assistant wasn't just staff. He was part of the same program, and he had been planted. He called security, but the line was dead. Not disconnected, cut. Just then, his office lights flickered. Then total blackout. Emergency power came on. Red lights, alarms blaring. Automated voice, security breach. Evacuate immediately. But the CEO didn't move. He knew this wasn't a fire. It was a cover. Someone wanted something, maybe someone removed. In the stairwell, he ran into David again. This way, sir. Emergency exit. The CEO smiled tightly. Of course. As they descended the stairs, the CEO suddenly stopped. You go ahead. I forgot something. David didn't argue, just nodded. Too icily. That's when the CEO knew David was leading him into a trap. He turned and ran up instead. 2 floors up, he ducked into a janitor's closet and locked the door. He texted the number the janitor used. They're after me. I saw the photo. What do I do? No reply. Just silence. Then a voice from behind the shelves. Took you long enough. The janitor stepped out of the shadows, dusty and calm. They're cleaning house, he said. We don't have much time. The CEO was stunned. How are you here? I never left. I just stopped being visible. They've cut power, sent warnings. They know everything. Not everything, the janitor said. They think you're still scared. That gives us one shot. At what? The CEO asked. At exposing them. He handed over a small drive. This is the Eden Protocol's full archive. The experiments, the disappearances. Even their funding sources. The CEO looked at it, shocked. How did you get this? I built the system, he said simply. I also built the back door. So why not release it? The janitor's face hardened. Because if I do, they'll shut it down before it spreads. But you're the CEO. You can upload it through the company's mainframe. They'll never suspect you. The CEO swallowed hard. They will now. David knows I'm on to him. Then we better move fast. The janitor replied. Together, they slipped through maintenance shafts until they reached the control center. Inside, everything looked normal. People working, lights steady. But when the CEO tried to enter his credentials, access was denied. They've already blocked me out, he whispered. The janitor stepped in. Not me. He pulled out an old ID badge, faded and dusty, but when he swiped it, the system unlocked. On the screen, live feeds blinked to life. Dozens of rooms, hundreds of files, and in one window, a cell. A boy. That's my son, the janitor whispered. He's still alive. The CEO felt his stomach twist. Then let's end this. The janitor inserted the drive. Uploading now. We just need 5 minutes. But they only had 2. The door burst open. David entered with 2 guards, guns drawn. Step away from the console. The janitor raised his hands. You won't shoot. Not here. David smiled. I don't need to. The building's about to be purged. The CEO stood tall. You'll kill everyone. Just the ones who know too much, David replied. Like you. The janitor glanced at the screen. 76% uploaded. He whispered. We stalled them. How? The CEO asked. By making them think we've already won. Then the janitor stepped forward. You want me? Fine. I surrender. David smirked. Too easy. But as the guards moved in, the janitor hit a button on his watch. Every screen in the control center flashed footage, files, audio, all being sent live to external media servers. Backup drives, independent news feeds. The janitor smiled. Now it's out. David screamed, no, and fired. The shot hit the janitor in the shoulder. He fell, bleeding but laughing. Too late. The CEO grabbed the drive and ran as more guards entered. Smoke bombs, screams, chaos. But somewhere in the cloud, the truth had already spread. All over the world, people started seeing what the janitor uncovered. And it wasn't over yet. The truth was out. All across the internet, screens lit up with secret files, video recordings, and names of people involved in the Eden Protocol. News anchors stuttered through breaking stories. Social media exploded. People saw everything: experiments, the children, the deaths, and even the cover-ups. But inside the building, the CEO was running. Smoke filled the halls. Alarms screamed, and the janitor was gone. Taken by security, maybe dead, maybe worse. The CEO didn't stop. He knew they would come for him too. He had the drive. The final copy. He reached the parking lot, jumped into his car, and drove without looking back. He didn't go home. He couldn't. That night, he stayed in an old motel outside the city. Curtains drawn, TV on mute. Laptop glowing with the only backup of the Eden files. He stared at the screen. Everything was in his hands. Names, reports, hidden labs, and a list of survivors. Among them, one stood out, the janitor's son. Marked, Subject 14, relocated, active. He wasn't dead. He had been moved, hidden, protected, or controlled. The CEO leaned back, mind racing. Then came the knock. Soft, careful, not police, not agents. Someone who didn't want attention. He stayed still. Another knock. Then a voice. I know you're in there. I'm not here to hurt you. He opened the door slowly. A woman stood there, mid-30s, sharp eyes. You don't know me, she said. But I knew him, the janitor. His name was Marcus. The CEO stepped back, letting her in. How? Did you find me? He told me if anything happened to find you. Said you'd know what to do. He's alive. He asked quickly. She shook her head. He was shot again. They took him. Last I heard, he was moved to a black site. No name, no location. The CEO clenched his fists. They're still trying to bury it. Yes, but now it's too big. She pulled out a tablet and showed him. Protests in cities. News reporters, reading classified files live on air. People demanding answers. You lit the fire, she said. Now, help us finish it. How? The files? There's more. A second phase, something worse, called Genesis. He blinked. I didn't see that, because it was buried deeper, she replied. Marcus gave me this. She handed him a key. It opens one server, hidden in a location no one dares to go back to, or the old testing facility. Shut down 10 years ago after a fire, but it still has power. Still running something. The CEO looked at her. You want to go there? No, she said. We have to go there. They left before dawn, drove 4 hours, past checkpoints, off-grid into the forest. The facility stood like a grave cold black and quiet. But the moment they stepped in, lights flickered on, motion sensors still active, cameras still blinking. The CEO inserted the key into a panel near the elevator. It whirred to life, going down. He whispered. The doors opened to a level untouched by time, walls scorched from the fire, desks covered in dust, but the servers, humming, alive. He walked to the main console and plugged in the drive. The screen lit up, access granted. Then Genesis project files opened, one by one, and what they saw made the Eden Protocol look small. Genesis wasn't just about creating intelligence. It was about replacing human leadership, politicians, generals, even presidents. The plan was to slowly insert clones grown from Eden subjects trained from birth, enhanced with synthetic minds, and loyal only to the Genesis order. They were building a new world, the CEO whispered, a quiet takeover. And they're not done, she said. Half of these faces are still in power. Suddenly, a video started playing. Marcus appeared, bruised, chained, but alive. If you're watching this, I'm likely gone. But Genesis isn't finished. They failed with me, but they succeeded with others. And one of them is my son. He doesn't know who he is, doesn't know what they've done to him, but he's still human, and he can be saved. The woman was crying. He trusted you, she said. So do I. They downloaded everything. Then the alarm went off. Unauthorized access detected. The CEO grabbed the drive. Let's go. They ran, past the dead labs, past old tanks, past rooms that once held screaming children. Behind them, footsteps. Soldiers. Genesis. Guards. The CEO turned and fired the last bullet from Marcus's gun, hitting the sprinkler line. Steam burst out, blinding. Their pursuers. They reached the surface just as a helicopter hovered overhead. But it wasn't military. It was civilian. Journalists. Live cameras rolling. The files had reached them. The world was watching. They got in. The CEO looked down as the building shrank below. His phone buzzed. A message from a private number. We know where Subject 14 is. Are you ready to go after him? The CEO looked at the woman beside him, then at the sky ahead. We're not stopping. Not now. And far below, inside the dark ruins of the Genesis lab, a pair of blue eyes opened in a tank. Watching, waiting, still alive. Rain poured over the city like it was trying to wash away the truth that had already spread too far. Streets were filled with protesters holding up signs that read Eden was real, justice for Marcus, and where is Subject 14? The world was no longer sleeping, but while the noise grew louder in the cities, somewhere in the outskirts, in a quiet government facility hidden behind forests and silence, Subject 14 opened his eyes. He looked human. He even breathed like one. But inside him, something had changed, something carefully crafted by the Genesis project. And now, that something was awake. Meanwhile, the CEO and the woman her name was Leela landed in a private airstrip. Journalists tried to surround them, but guards kept them away. A black car waited, unmarked, bulletproof. A man stepped out, a former intelligence officer. "You made the files public," he said, nodding to the CEO. "Good, but now you have to finish what Marcus started. We need to find his son," the CEO said without wasting time. The officer nodded again. "Subject 14. We think he's alive. They've moved him 3 times. Last location site. Echo." "Echo?" Lila asked. "That place was shut down years ago." "So is Eden," the officer said flatly. "Genesis doesn't shut places down. They just changed the name." They drove without lights for hours. Lila barely spoke. She kept staring out the window like she was listening for something. The CEO finally asked, "What did Marcus mean when he said his son could be saved?" She turned to him because he didn't choose any of this. They took him as a child. He was 5. His name was Ely, sweetest boy. He used to cry when bees died. And now he doesn't remember any of that. They erased it. Replaced his past with missions, numbers, commands. But Marcus believed one thing, stayed inside him love. The car stopped near an old dam, overgrown, abandoned. A metal door hid behind the waterfall. The officer handed them each a small earbud. "Once you're in, you'll lose contact after level 3. That's where we think Subject 14 is kept." "Are you coming with us?" the CEO asked. The officer shook his head. "No, I'm not allowed to enter. My face is still in their system. You're off-grid. They don't expect you." Leela pulled out Marcus's key again, the same one used to unlock the Genesis servers. She slid it into a small slot beside the waterfall. The door opened. Cold air rushed out, and silence. Inside, the walls were white, too clean. Lights flickered. The deeper they went, the less human the place felt. They passed rows of empty rooms. Some still had beds, others had scratch marks on the walls. Then, level 3. The moment they stepped in, a soft voice echoed. "Unauthorized entry. Stand down." Turrets dropped from the ceiling, aimed and blinked and went back. Marcus's key still worked. They moved forward. Room 14, a single window, and inside, a young man, maybe 20, sitting straight, pale skin, empty eyes. The CEO stepped closer. "Eli." No response. Lila placed her hand on the glass. "Eli, it's me. It's Aunt Lila. Do you remember me?" He turned his head. Slowly. His lips didn't move, but his eyes blinked once. Then lights went red. Sirens howled. Protocol breach. Subject active. The door slammed behind them. From the corner of the room, a second figure emerged, a woman in a lab coat. She looked familiar. The CEO narrowed his eyes. "Dr. Harris." She smiled coldly. "You always were too curious. You're alive. Genesis doesn't kill its best minds. We just relocated. You lied to the world. You buried Eden. You ruined lives. We evolved them," she said calmly. "Eli is our future. He's not a boy. He's a weapon. And now, thanks to your visit, he's awake." The glass in room 14 shattered as Eli stood, not blinking, not breathing hard, just moving like he had waited for this. Alarms screamed louder. Lila whispered, "Eli, please, don't let them control you." He stepped through the broken frame, looked at her hand for a split second. Something flickered in his eyes. But then Dr. Harrow pulled a small remote from her coat. "Override code, 01 for execute protocol loyalty." Eli froze. His hands shook, his pupils changed. The CEO lunged forward, grabbing the remote and smashing it on the floor. Eli dropped to his knees. "What did you do?" Harrow yelled. "I gave him a choice," the CEO replied. Leela stepped closer, kneeling beside Eli. "I used to sing to you when you were scared. You loved stars. You cried when your dad cut your hair too short. You are not them." Eli's lips moved. One word. "Dad." Lila nodded, tears falling. "Yes, he died saving you, but he believed. In your heart, you can fight this." Behind them, soldiers poured in, guns raised. The CEO grabbed a metal bar from the floor. Lila stood beside him, but before the soldiers could fire, he raised his hand. Every light in the room burst. The ceiling cracked. Gravity shifted. The soldiers floated for a second, then collapsed. Unconscious, he stood tall now, breathing hard. "I remember everything," he said. "They made me a weapon, but my father made me human." Harrow tried to run. Eli turned and looked at her. "You erased my name, but you can't erase my soul." He raised his hand again, and every screen in the facility turned on, showing every room, every child, every crime, streaming live to the world. The truth was no longer just a story. It was history, documented, shared, and irreversible. The trio ran. Behind them, the facility went dark. Outside, helicopters hovered again, this time dropping food, medical help, and journalists. The world had seen enough silence. They wanted justice. As the sun rose, Eli looked at the sky. "Well, now?" he asked. Leela hugged him. "Now, you get to be free." The CEO placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your father gave everything for this moment. Let's make it matter." Far away, behind glass and firewalls, the last members of Genesis watched the footage. A shadowed figure turned to his counsel. "Initiate protocol, Lazarus. The war has only begun." But for now, Eli walked into the light, no longer a subject, just a boy with a name, a past, and a future worth fighting for. The world didn't sleep that night. Every screen lit up with Eli's face. Every news anchor repeated the same line. Subject 14, now identified as Eli Marcus, has revealed the dark truths behind Project Genesis. It spread like fire. Eden, Site Echo, the erased children, the silent experiments. Everything was out, and it could never be hidden again. But with truth came danger. Powerful men didn't want justice. They wanted control. Somewhere in the shadows, behind private screens and encrypted networks, leaders of the Lazarus Protocol gathered. They had lost one facility, but not the war. We underestimated the boy, one of them said. And the father, another added. A man in a black coat, no name, no emotion, leaned forward. Then we don't give him time to become a symbol. We erase him again, but this time, permanently. While the world debated and demanded answers, Eli, Leela, and the CEO moved. From one safe house to another. Every door they stayed behind was temporary. Every window watched. Eli had changed. He was quiet, not cold, but focused. Sometimes he'd stare into space, and his hands would glow faintly. Lila worried. He's still learning what he is, she whispered to the CEO. And what he isn't, the CEO added. He's not a weapon. Not anymore. But they knew the truth. Genesis had embedded deep codes in Eli's mind. Triggers, commands, memories, all sleeping inside him like landmines. If one woke up, everything could collapse. They needed help. Real help. So they took a risk. They sent out a signal. Not to governments. Not to armies. But to the others. Survivors. Kids who had escaped Eden. Grown-ups now. Scattered. Hiding. Within hours. The replies came back. One message said, I remember Eli. He used to sneak food to us. Another, tell him I never forgot. I'm in. By the end of the week, 12 people had joined them. Some broken, some healed. All carrying pieces of the same puzzle. They met in an old library, deep underground. Books still stood untouched. Dust danced in sunlight shafts. Eli sat in the center. He listened more than he spoke. But when he did speak, they all listened. I don't want to lead anything, he said. But if we don't stand up, they'll build another Genesis. And this time, maybe none of us will survive to warn the world. A girl named Rosa stepped forward. Her arms were covered in scars. They took our names, our voices. You gave them back. A boy with cybernetic implants nodded. We owe you. And so they began. Not as an army, but as witnesses. They created a live feed, a digital truth channel. 24/7, sharing documents, interviews, survivor stories. People across the globe watched, donated, investigated. The Lazarus group couldn't stop it, but they could still strike back. And they did. One night as Eli slept, his body stiffened, eyes wide open, breathing shallow. Lila tried to wake him, but his hands glowed, pulsing. Suddenly he stood, walked outside like a machine. Eli, she shouted. He didn't answer. The CEO chased him. Something's wrong. But Eli kept walking toward a cliff, toward nothing. Then he spoke in a voice that wasn't his. Protocol, active. Terminate asset. Leela's heart stopped. They were triggering his mind, forcing him to self-destruct. She screamed, Eli, please, listen to me. You are not them. You are your father's son. For a moment, the light in his eyes flickered. The glow dimmed. But then it returned stronger. He reached the edge, arms out ready to fall. The CEO sprinted and tackled him from behind. They rolled. Eli gasped. Blinked, hand collapsed. He didn't wake for hours. When he did, he cried. Not from pain, but from shame. They're still inside me, he whispered. I'm a danger to all of you. Lila hugged him. You're not the danger they are, and we're going to remove them, every last code they buried in you. But it wasn't simple. They needed someone who had built the codes. Someone deep from Genesis. Someone who had defected. Only one name came to mind, Dr. Rail, a former coder. Vanished 10 years ago. Some said she was dead. Others believed she was hiding. They followed digital footprints. Financial traces. Finally, a whisper from a hacker in Berlin led them to Nepal. A mountain high in the mountains, silent, sacred, there. Inside a cold stone room, an old woman waited. You've come for the boy, she said without looking. You know who he is, Leela asked. I know what he could become. I also know what he chooses to be. The woman turned. She was blind, but her fingers glowed faintly. Eli, she said softly, come. He stepped forward, kneeling. She placed her hand on his head. So much pain, so much fire. They made you a tool, but your father planted something deeper, faith. Can you help me? He asked. I can help you remember who you were before the commands. But the rest, you must fight yourself. Days turned into weeks. Inside the temple, Eli faced every nightmare, every lie, every forced memory. He cried, he screamed, he bled, but slowly, the light inside him stopped obeying others. It listened to him. One morning, he walked outside, stood on a rock, and flew. Not high, not fast, but he flew by choice. Lila and the CEO watched in awe. He's learning, the CEO whispered. He's becoming, Lila said. But peace never lasts. Not in stories like these. One night, explosions echoed in the valley. The Lazarus group had found them. Soldiers marched up the hill. Eli floated down. "I'll stop them," he said. "No," Lila said. "We'll stop them together." They had no army, no weapons, but they had the truth and the world. As Lazarus soldiers approached, drones flew above, broadcasting live. People everywhere watched. Every shot fired, every scream, but something changed. Soldiers lowered weapons. "We didn't sign up to kill children," one said. "We're outnumbered," another added. "Not by guns, but by eyes, by conscience." Lazarus was exposed. Worldwide, overnight, governments froze its assets, arrested leaders, but the man in the black coat vanished, leaving one message: "You won this time, but the world always forgets." Months passed. Eli returned to the city, not as a hero, not as a god, just a boy who finally got to walk in the sun without orders in his head. One day, he stood before a school watching children play. A little girl walked up. "Are you the boy from the news?" she asked. He smiled. "I used to be, but now, I'm just Eli." She grinned and ran back to her friends. Behind him, Leela and the CEO stood together. "Watching what now?" she asked. "Now," the CEO replied. "We rebuild. Not labs, not weapons, but hope." The story didn't end in fire or blood. It ended in peace, earned, fought for, paid with love, sacrifice, and truth. But in a dark room, somewhere deep underground, the man in the black coat stared at a new screen, a new subject, a new experiment, because evil doesn't sleep, but neither does courage. And now, the world had Eli. The hall was still buzzing from the previous day's announcement, but today was different. Today the janitor was no longer just the janitor, he was the man everyone now called by his real name, Mr. Adam Ray, and as he stepped into the building wearing his usual work boots and quietly nodding to the receptionist, no one saw a cleaner. They saw something more, a man who had turned the entire company upside down without ever raising his voice. Adam walked the same corridor he had mopped for years. But now people moved aside, not out of pity, not out of mockery, but out of deep respect. Eyes followed him, but no one dared to stop him. Today he wasn't cleaning. Today he was on his way to the executive conference room where the board of directors had requested his presence. The CEO, now known by his first name only, Martin, waited near the glass doors. His usual arrogance had vanished, replaced by a strange nervousness. He kept checking his phone, adjusting his tie, looking like a student about to face a teacher. Adam stopped in front of him, looked him in the eye and simply said, "I heard you wanted to speak." The boardroom was silent as they entered. The long glass table full of men and women in suits seemed smaller today, as if the presence of one quiet man had shifted the power dynamic. The chairman stood and gestured for Adam to sit at the head of the table, but Adam shook his head. "I'll stand," he said softly. "We don't want you to stand, sir," the chairman replied firmly. "We want you to lead." The words dropped into the silence like thunder. Adam looked around. "I never asked for this," he said. "I just did what I thought was right, but that's exactly why we're asking you to lead," the CFO said, leaning forward. "This company was blind. For too long we need someone who sees." Adam glanced at Martin, the CEO, whose face was pale. "We judged you without knowing you," Martin finally said. "And for that I'm sorry. You deserved better than what I gave." Adam nodded slowly. "I don't need an apology. I need change." Then he walked to the whiteboard, picked up a marker, and began drawing lines, circles, arrows. "This isn't just about cleaning floors," he said. "It's about cleaning the culture." The board members leaned in, watching a break down operational inefficiencies, bottlenecks, and toxic management patterns within minutes. The silence wasn't just respect, it was shock. Realization that the man they once ignored had more vision than any of them. Later that day, an email went out to every employee from the board. "We are proud to announce Mr. Adam Ray as our new Chief Operating Officer, effective immediately." But Adam had one condition: he would still arrive early, still greet the cleaning staff, still walk the halls, and still carry his small tool pouch for emergencies. When asked why, he simply said, "Because no one's job is beneath me." That evening, social media exploded with headlines. Former janitor, now coup, and he cleaned floors, healed a company. News vans camped outside the office. Influencers made videos about his story. HR received thousands of job applications overnight. The company had unknowingly become a symbol of hope across the nation. At home, Adam sat with his daughter Sarah, who looked up at him wide-eyed. "I told the kids at school today that my dad runs a company," she said proudly. "But you used to sweep it." Adam smiled. "And both are important, honey." She hugged him tight. "You're my superhero." On Monday, Adam walked into his first executive meeting as coup, not with a speech, but with a question: what if we built this place for the people who work hardest, not just those at the top? No one had an answer yet, but everyone listened. That afternoon, Adam visited the janitor's locker room, where his old uniform still hung. He touched it gently, then left a note on the hook: "Thank you for teaching me the value of silence and strength." He also created a new program within the company. Every employee, from the janitor to the manager, would spend one day a year walking in someone else's shoes. An engineer would clean a floor, a director would fix a clogged sink, a VP would handle incoming support calls. The goal was not punishment but perspective. The results were immediate. People laughed, more complained less, and truly saw each other for the first time. Meanwhile, Martin, the ex-CEO, now sat as a silent board member, watching the company. He once ruled change under someone he had dismissed, but he was not bitter. In fact, one day he stood up during a meeting and said Adam didn't just save the company, he saved me too. Months passed and the company began to win awards not just for innovation but for culture. Employees stayed longer, mental health improved, productivity soared. People weren't afraid to speak up anymore because they knew someone was listening. One evening, as Adam locked up his office, he saw an old woman mopping the hallway. She was new, quiet, focused, just like he once was. He walked over and said, "Can I help you?" She looked up, smiled, and replied, "They told me the coup might stop by. I didn't believe them." He chuckled and picked up a mop beside her. Together they cleaned in silence, 2 generations of strength, standing side by side. And far away in a small town, a retired soldier watched the news and smiled. "That's my boy," he whispered, wiping a tear from his cheek. He always kept his promise. The janitor had become the leader, not by demanding power, but by embodying humility. His story wasn't about revenge or pride, it was about rising without stepping on others, about shining light without blinding others, about reminding the world that greatness often wears dusty shoes and carries a mop instead of a microphone. And as the company grew and changed and thrived, people would walk through its doors, not just looking for jobs, but looking for something more: hope. And they'd find it in the legacy of a man who once swept the floors and ended up sweeping hearts.